Welcome to this explainer. Right, let's jump straight into it. Today, we're driving into an epic mythological history, tracking a massive cosmic tug of war between creation and destruction. We're talking about a time way before the world as we know it even existed, looking at the godlike architects who built it and the dark forces that literally just couldn't stand to see it thrive. It's these exact monumental events that laid the absolute foundation for the Middle-earth stories we all know and love. So let's kick things off with a pretty profound question. Before the era of men even began, how did the powers of the world actually shape the Earth out of complete darkness? Well, let me tell you, it wasn't some peaceful, quiet process. Not at all. It was a turbulent, chaotic age filled with monumental engineering and some really bitter rivalries among these powerful beings.
Now, before we get completely lost in the dense lore, we need to establish our main stage. The setting here is Arda. That's the world itself. It was originally shaped by powerful beings known as the Valar, who labored endlessly to bring some kind of order to the chaotic seas, lands, and mountains. But their work, it was constantly contested by one of their own, a dark, incredibly jealous force named Melkor. So from day one, Arda was the ultimate battleground.
Section 1. The Spring of Arda. Light in the primeval world. We begin in a time of immense labor. The Valar had a desperate need to introduce light to this dark, unshaped world. In rapid succession during these early eons, the world was locked in a massive First War. And honestly, Melkor had the upper hand at first. But then, a spirit of immense strength named Tolkien showed up, literally laughing as he drove Melkor out into the outer darkness. With that dark force banished, a long age of peace finally kicked off. The fires were subdued, the Valar forged two great sources of light, and the seeds devised by the earth goddess Yazana were finally planted. Now, you really have to appreciate the sheer scale of the Valar's engineering here. They didn't just light a campfire. They forged two colossal lamps, Iluin in the north and Ormal in the south. They set these massive beacons on top of pillars far loftier than any mountains we have today. The light from these twin lamps flowed out over the entire Earth, bathing the whole world in a perpetual, changeless, bright day. And right in the heart of this newly illuminated world, in the very middle of the Earth, the light from Iluin and Ormal perfectly met and blended. It was right there, upon the Isle of Elmorin in the Great Lake, that the Valar set up their very first home. Surrounded by newly sprouting forests, giant ferns, and early beasts roaming the grassy plains, the makers of the world finally took a breath. They rested, completely content, just watching their creations unfold.
Section 2. The Marring of the World. Melkor's Jealousy.
But you know it wasn't going to last. While the Valar rested and celebrated their fragile peace, they completely missed the shadow creeping back into the north. A deep, cosmic jealousy was brewing just outside their perfect, sunlit borders. Melkor had secretly returned. He bypassed their watch entirely and started delving Utumno. This was a vast, terrifying fortress deep underground, hidden far beneath dark mountains where the light of the northern lamp, Iluin, was cold and dim. And Melkor's actions weren't just random acts of violence. His sheer, toxic jealousy physically corrupted the perfect ecosystem the Valar had just built. Even before they realized he was there, the blight of his hatred started seeping out from Utumno. The Spring of Arda was literally marred. Green things fell sick and rotted away. Rivers choked up with slimy weeds, forests grew dark and perilous, and once peaceful beasts mutated into these horrific monsters of horn and ivory. The Valar eventually realized Melkor was back and went looking for him, but Melkor completely blindsided them. In a devastating surprise attack, he went straight for the Great Lights. He completely cast down the towering pillars of Iluin and Ormal. When those colossal lamps shattered, destroying flame just poured out over the earth. Lands were broken, seas rose up in absolute tumult, and the original perfect symmetry of Arda was ruined forever. The Valar's first grand design was gone for good. Section 3. The Two Trees of Valinor, a retreat to the west. Forced to abandon their ruined home on Almarin, the Valar realized something terrible. They couldn't actually fight Melkor without risking the complete destruction of the earth itself. So they made a strategic retreat. They moved behind the highest mountains on earth to the westernmost edge of the world, a heavily fortified land called Aman. And there, they literally sang a new light into existence. Yavanna sang, Nienna watered the earth with her tears, and 2 living saplings grew into the legendary 2 Trees of Valinor. You have Telperion the Elder raining down a dew of shining silver light, and Laurelin the Younger spilling a warm golden rain. This was, without a doubt, the absolute pinnacle of their creative power. What's truly fascinating about these trees is how they functioned. They operated on an incredible 12-hour biological cycle. Telperion would shine for 7 hours, waxing and waning, and right as he started to fade, Laurelin would awaken. Twice a day, there was this magical, gentle hour where both trees were faint, and their gold and silver beams mingled together perfectly. This rhythmic, beautiful dawn and dusk of silver and gold actually became the very first way time was formally counted in this universe. How cool is that? And the sheer abundance of this living light didn't just fade into the air. Oh no. The dew of Telperion and the rain of Laurelin were carefully gathered up by Varda, the queen of the Valar. She hoarded all of it in these massive vats that looked like shining lakes. They served as vast wells of pure water and light, kicking off what became famously known as the glorious days of the bliss of Valinor, a time where absolutely nothing faded, withered, or fell sick. Section 4, Guardians in the Twilight, Watchers of Middle-earth. But here's the catch. While the Valar were enjoying this literal paradise in the west, they still had to keep watch over the dark, starlit twilight of Middle-earth, which was constantly haunted by Melkor and his terrifying creatures. Each of the Valar governed a different element and cared for that struggling world in their own unique way. Manwë watched from the absolute highest peak. Auleg governed the crass of the earth. Yavanna would occasionally cross the mountains just to try and heal the corrupted forests. Orome, the great huntsman, rode his silver horse through the dark woods hunting Melkor's monsters. And then there's Ulmo, governing the waters, who never once forsook the outer land. So, even in this terrifying era of darkness where Melkor wielded cold and fire from the mountain peaks right down to the deep furnaces, the earth actually survived. The Valar maintained this desperate, secret lifeline to Middle-earth through the constant flow of Ulmo's hidden rivers and the terrifying echo of Orome's hunting horn scattering the shadows. They kept the world breathing. Because you see, they were actively preparing for a highly, highly anticipated arrival. Section 5. Fates of Elves and Men, the Children of Iluvatar. Ultimately, all of this cosmic construction, destruction, and preservation was really just setting the stage for beings the mighty Valar didn't even design. Enter the Children of Iluvatar, Elves and Men. They were conceived entirely by the supreme creator Iluvatar, and because the Valar didn't design them, they didn't fully understand them. The Valar had to realize they were meant to be elders and chieftains to these new kindreds, not their masters. In fact, they quickly learned that whenever they tried to force or heavily guide these new beings, it almost always backfired, no matter how good their intentions were. Now, pay attention to the profound distinction Iluvatar makes between his 2 children here. He decrees the earth will be a mansion for the Quendi, which are the elves, and the Atani, which are men. He offers the elves unmatched beauty and greater bliss in the world itself. But for men, he promises something entirely different. He gives them what he calls a new gift. This is where we see the ultimate tragic contrast of this universe. The elves are granted immortality, right? But that means they are eternally bound to the world. As the years stretch on and the earth inevitably changes, the elves grow ever more sorrowful. Men, on the other hand, have brief lives. They die and they leave the world entirely. Because of this, men are actually known as the guests or the strangers in Arda. Iluvatar's unique gift to men is actually their very mortality. Unlike the elves, men are not strictly bound to the overarching fate of the universe. They are granted this chaotic, messy, but beautiful freedom to shape their own destiny right amidst the powers of the world. They die and depart to somewhere completely unknown. Death is their ultimate fate. And it's a gift that, as time wears on, even the immortal, world-bound powers will eventually come to envy. Which brings us to our final, lingering mystery. We know that men, with their gift of mortality, will eventually join in the second music at the end of time to remake the world. But Iluvatar has kept the final destiny of the immortal elves a complete, absolute secret. Melkor hasn't discovered it, the Valar themselves don't know it, and it leaves us all wondering what exactly happens to these magnificent, immortal beings when the world they are permanently bound to finally, inevitably dies. Well, it's a massive, fascinating question to chew on. Thanks for tuning into this explainer and keep exploring the lore.